We all know that Donald Trump is completely unwilling to do interviews unless he is having softball questions lobbed at him or his hand held by the host that's interviewing him. And the interview that Donald Trump just did with Tom Klingenstein is exactly that. Donald Trump was not only asked the easiest questions possible, not only guided through those questions, but the host, when Donald Trump started to ramble, when he really started to actually just implode, cut Donald Trump off in an abrupt and really shocking way. And you saw it throughout the interview as Donald Trump continued to deteriorate. It was really shocking, and we are going to get into it all. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really means the world to me. Now let's get into this crazy interview that we will eventually see abruptly stopped, but let's start with this clip.
That the ABC debate team coordinated with Kamala's team.
Her friend is the head of the ABC, I think, news division or whatever. Her best friend. His best friend is her husband. They met through these people. And I have absolutely no idea, because those answers, not good memory, but those answers were sort of semi-memorized. In fact, on occasion, she'd get out of kilter and she'd give the wrong answer to the wrong question. That's what we've got. No, it was, but even worse than that, and that's bad, that's bad. But they would interrupt me every time. And I said, what's going on here? And I had a choice during the debate. I was going to say, I was going to hit him hard, but I wanted to be elegant. I wanted to say, let's try and forget about it, because I know if I hit him.
He can't talk about substance. He can't talk about policy. He can't talk about the future because, of course, he's always too wrapped up in the past. Donald Trump still complaining about his debate with ABC. And it's so funny that he says that Kamala Harris had the questions ahead of time, because the questions were, what are your thoughts on the economy, abortion, the border? So no, Donald, she didn't have the questions before. She was prepared. She is able to think and speak like a rational person, which you come nowhere close to. It's really just Donald Trump showing how out of touch with reality he is, that he thinks that Kamala Harris was given some unfair advantage when everyone knew exactly what they'd be talking about, except for Donald Trump. And speaking of strange conversations that went in weird directions, when Donald Trump was asked by this host about racism, he took the conversation in a really weird direction.
But I've seen people, when they're called racist, strong politicians, strong men generally, they cower. They are so afraid of being called racist that they'll do anything for the other side. And I think that's a little bit what you're saying. But what I say is a little bit different, and maybe a little bit earlier in the process. We have enemies outside, but we also have the enemy from within. And I say, and I've said it for a long time, I took hundreds of billions out of China.
Donald Trump pivoting a question about racism to the enemy from within should show you kind of where his head is at with everything in life and in his view of America. And it's really just shocking that he continues to use this phrase. But more than anything, it just shows how spineless the Republicans who defended him are, saying, no, Donald Trump doesn't mean Adam Schiff. No, he doesn't mean Nancy Pelosi, when he continues to cite both of them in reference to his enemy from within attack. And speaking of attack, like I said, this host is just holding Donald Trump's hand throughout the entire interview until he really just stops him. But a moment in which they were trying to share in a new idea was really weird, as we can see right here.
Right. You're the great namer.
I've given a lot of great names. I think so.
Okay, but now you need one.
Right. I'm not totally satisfied with comrade, because a lot of people don't quite understand what it means. She is a Marxist. She's a communist. She's a fascist. And she's not very smart. And these are bad things. And by the way, if she ever won, my life won't be so great in this country. But I don't care. I don't care. We have to explain who this woman is. We have to explain who this woman is.
Absolutely.
This woman is a disaster.
But you got to
Donald Trump says that Kamala Harris doesn't do difficult enough interviews. So does the rest of the media. But the host interviewing Donald Trump here is trying to help him come up with a name to attack Kamala Harris with. There couldn't be a more buddying up version of an interview than this. That's what he's trying to help him with his campaign. He's not asking him questions. And when he does ask him questions, he allows ridiculous answers from Trump like this.
Nancy Pelosi is a horrible human being. I know her very well. She's a sick, horrible person. but she gets people to stick together. You know, she gets them to stick together for bad things. These are bad people. What they do to our country, these are very bad people. And I can name a lot of them on the other side. The Republicans have to get tougher. For instance, they cheat like hell in elections.
Like I said, this interview was a complete softball in which Donald Trump was allowed to pretty much run wild, except up to one point. Now, we saw there Donald Trump attacking our democracy, as he always does, and it seemed like the host was fine with that. But when he did take issue, is when Donald Trump was asked a certain question that he just had to cut him off before he could go down the rabbit hole of ridiculousness that is the words that come out of Donald Trump's mouth. He abruptly cut him off, and I want to take a look.
Kamala says, vote for her, and you're voting for joy. Yeah. What's the one-word counterpart?
Competence.
Competence.
Well, but real competence, real
Okay.
competence, not just he's sort of a competent person. No, real competence.
Let's change subjects.
I think it's funny, but also interesting why the host decided to cut Donald Trump off on that particular question when he said, oh, competency is my response to Kamala Harris's campaign being about joy. Like Kamala Harris's campaign isn't also about competency, pointing out the obvious flaws and the damage Donald Trump did to our country and our economy under his presidency, and how he has no substantive plans, and any plans that he does have would be detrimental. But the host cuts him off because whenever Donald Trump talks about competency, he attacks Kamala Harris in a way that is incredibly off-putting to voters. And you also don't want Donald Trump, who is clearly losing his mind, talking about competency. Yeah, that contrast doesn't really go well. That irony is incredibly clear. So the host just cuts him off. And speaking of Donald Trump's competency, there's a new ad out from the Harris campaign that touches on that in a fun way. Let's check it out.
Welcome to Mar-a-Lago Senior Living, a state-of-the-art senior facility located on the coast of Florida. If the senior in your life is getting exhausted, it might be time for a change. Here at Mar-a-Lago Senior Living, we care for even the most particular residents,
My teleprompter people doing a great job. As are Asians.
even the ones who still feel young at heart.
And I'm not 80, and I'm not that close to 80. Put on Pavarotti singing Ave Maria.
Many residents find their favorite music comforting. If the senior in your life tends to wander off, our round-the-clock care has you covered. Mar-a-Lago Senior Living. Watch the Florida sunset while you sundown.
I absolutely love that ad. I really hope that they are taking a page out of George Conway's playbook and playing it near Mar-a-Lago in that media market. Make sure Donald Trump sees it. Make sure his kitchen's covered with ketchup, throwing his bottles all upset. But speaking of an upset Trump and his anger and lashing out, the host asked Donald Trump in a very scary moment about Republicans being in a war, which should demonstrate where this individual is coming from. And the answer that Trump gave was stranger than usual. And let's take a look.
You know it better than anybody. And it's very interesting because your writings, and I read your things, and I don't know that much about you. As soon as I read your first statement about me, I said, this guy's got it figured. So people don't understand what they did. And the problem we have a lot of weak people in the Republican Party. They're not willing to play the game with the same level of ferocity that the Democrats play the game. Adam Shifty Schiff is a truly bad guy. He's a crooked guy. The
That's how we have to understand we're in a war.
In
a war, you play by different rules. Yeah. And you don't compromise because there's no basis for compromise. And let me get back to the debate. Republicans criticized you, some of them, right?
And some love me.
Right.
And they still do.
Republicans shouldn't be criticized. You're our man.
Well, we can't help it. Mitt Romney is Mitt Romney. He's a bad guy.
But all I'm saying
weak.
is when you're in a war, right, you defend your commander-in-chief, right?
Well, I'm always saying that. The Republicans don't stick together like they... Now, I tell you what, on impeachment hoaxes, they stuck together. They were great to me.
The whole conversation of a war is very much representative of the tone of this interview, but also the tone of Trump's whole campaign, how he views our country, how he views his enemies, and the mentality that he takes towards them. And it should be scary that this is the position and the tone of Donald Trump. Well, on contrary, in contrast to that, Kamala Harris's campaign is about joy, moving us forward. Donald Trump is caught up in his grievance and his past, and that is the contrast in this race. Someone who is focused on themselves and focused on retribution, and Kamala Harris, who wants to move us forward. The exact argument she was making right here.
We have an opportunity to turn the page and chart a new and joyful way, dare I say joyful, way forward. Where we tap into the ambition and the aspirations and the dreams of the American people. And I'm going to tell you, as I travel around our country, there is an overwhelming call for a fresh start. For a new generation of leadership that is optimistic and excited about what we can do together. There is a yearning in our country for a president who sees the people, not just looking in the mirror all the time, but sees the people, who gets you and who will fight for you. That is what this election is about.
We have the opportunity to turn the page. We have the opportunity to move forward. We have the opportunity to better our country. Let's take it. And that's what we're going to be talking about every single day on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.